After working on this upper section of Superstructure for a very long time, the time has finally come to complete it. To do that, I'll construct and install the antennas for the radar, this boom, and then a couple of ladders. One thing that I won't be doing in this video is gluing the Admiral's Bridge to the Admiral's Bridge platform. That is because I want to be able to remove this section of Superstructure for when I'm working on other areas of the ship. There are a lot of delicate parts that stick out quite far from the Superstructure. I'm concerned that if I have all of this attached to the ship while I'm working on other areas of the Superstructure, I will bump into them and damage them. Fortunately, there is a clean line where I'll be able to detach these sections of the Superstructure from each other. To start this part of the build, I'm going to prepare and fold the photo etch for the radar antennas. Both of the radar antennas come in one piece that needs to be folded around end plates. This is not too difficult to fold, and because they have provided good folding joints on this photo etch, it is actually quite easy to fold with tweezers. There's no need to use the photo etch folding tool here. My opinion of these photo etch antennas are that they are barely passable. I'm not particularly happy with them. I think they're better than the plastic antennas, but I think there's a lot to be desired with their design. Nevertheless, they are better than the plastic antennas that come with the Trumpeter kit, so I will use them even if I'm not entirely happy with them. This antenna, being made out of a single piece of photo etch, doesn't really need any super glue to hold it together. I'm really just using glue as a mechanism to hold the panels square with each other. Photo etch does have a tendency to spring back after you folded it, so if I can fold it and hold it in the correct position, then glue it in place so it doesn't move, then I know I can keep everything square. This glue is not really providing any structural integrity to these parts. In any case, they're so delicate that if you were to bump them, it would probably just break the part anyway. After the antennas are folded, I then prepare sections of ladder. The ladders provide access from the roof of the spotting top to the top of the radar hood. This is the same type of ladder that I used for the section that runs from the platform that runs next to the spotting top to the roof of the spotting top. To install the ladder, I dip the end in extra thin superglue and then put it in contact with the side of the radar hood. After the ladders are installed, I can install the antenna that goes on the top of the radar hood. To do that, I apply extra thick superglue to the underside of the feet of the antenna and then place the antenna in the correct position on the radar hood. Once tacked in place with the extra thick superglue, I then reinforce the bond with extra thin superglue that I apply with a wire. That is all the photo etch assembly, so to speak, that I can do at this point. So I now spray the components in XF53, the color that I'm using for hood's superstructure. I paint the lower radar antenna separately before I install it on the spotting top because it's going to be more difficult to spray it in XF53 without getting overspray onto parts that shouldn't be painted in XF53 if I were to install it on the spotting top first. While I'm at it, I also spray some of the components for the ladders and for the boom that is going to be attached to the platform in between the legs of the tripod mast. After a short amount of time, the XF53 has dried and I can paint the wire that hangs below the boom in black. I'm painting it in black because I'll be using black for the rigging for the rest of the ship and I want this cable to match. Now that the paint is dried, installation can begin. I'll start by installing the radar hood onto the spotting top. First, I position the radar hood in place loose, and then, once correctly aligned, I use extra thin plastic cement to bond it in place. Once the radar hood is properly bonded, I then place a small drop of extra thick superglue on the roof of the spotting top, and then place the lower antenna on top of the superglue. The antenna is then carefully positioned to make sure that it is properly aligned, and then the bond is reinforced with extra thin superglue. The tread plate and rail for the ladder that extends out of the back of the platform is then prepared. This is just a matter of folding the rail up into position and then gluing down one edge using extra thin superglue. To cause the superglue to instantly set, I use superglue accelerator on the superglue. Extra thick superglue is then applied to the edge of the platform, and then the tread plate is brought into contact with the side of the platform. I then move up to the installation of the boom that is attached to the back of the platform that sits between the legs of the tripod mast. First, I need to reattach the rod that got broken off in the previous video. Just use a little bit of extra thick superglue to do that, and a bit of patience to maneuver it into the correct position. Once the glue is set holding the rod in place, I can then very carefully position the boom on top of that rod. It does need to be fed through a bit of a small hole, and if I accidentally bump it, I will probably break off this rod again, so I have to do this quite carefully. But it's not too bad. Once correctly positioned and centered, I then glue it in place using extra thin super glue that I apply with a wire. Unfortunately, this photo edge has a bit of a curve on it, which I need to straighten out, so I counterbend it to make it straight. Fortunately, it was quite cooperative and didn't cause me too much of a problem. I then, at this point, noticed that there was some visible grey paint at the top of the wire that hangs beneath the boom. This wasn't apparent when I was painting the wire on the fret, so I just do a quick touch up with some black paint and the brush. And then I move on to the installation of the ladders. First, I'll start with this long ladder that goes all the way down to this lower deck. The most important thing that I need to do with this ladder is ensure that it ends parallel with this ladder that is a little bit aft of it. Once correctly positioned, I position the short upper ladder, which then runs from the top of this small structure to the tread plate that I previously installed. Once happy with the position and alignment of the ladders, I glue them down using extra thin super glue that I apply with a wire. Since at this stage I still want to be able to remove this entire section of superstructure from the model, I don't glue down the base of these ladders. So once the glue is set, which takes about a second, I can then remove the section of superstructure and replace it at will. And with that, I have finally completed the superstructure from the Admiral's Bridge upwards. But I still have not completed all the details on the forward superstructure. There are still details that need to be added to the lower levels. Now that I can take this section of superstructure off of the model and all the details that I can very easily break with it, I will now work on the lower levels of the forward superstructure. If you would like to support this channel or see how this ship looks when it is completed, then please subscribe. Thanks for watching. Cheers.